Good morning, everyone. I am Kamala Ramprasad de Silva, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to day one of Governance Week 2026. At this time, I will like to briefly introduce our recently installed chairman, who is none other than Robbie Rambarran from Guyana. Robbie is the Chief Executive Officer of the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation, which is Guyana's national hospital. He holds a master's in business administration and has served as a procurement specialist on the World Bank and UNICEF-funded projects for the Ministry of Education in Guyana. Robbie is heavily involved in sports administration and as such has served as a member and director of the Essequibo Cricket Board, the Pele Football Club, Guyana Football Federation, and the Guyana Country Coordinating Mechanism, the Global Fund Board. He has served 2 terms as a director of CCGI over the last 6 years, and last month he became the first chairman to be appointed on our board, being someone from outside of Trinidad and Tobago. Robbie is a very dear friend as well, and I'm so happy, although he has not been feeling well, he's making sure to come out and meet his obligations with us at CCGI. So Robbie, I now hand over for you to do your presentation for today.
Thank you, Kamala, and a pleasant good morning to everyone. I know many of you here were not on the call yesterday as well, so I want to welcome you to Governance Week 2026. And I'll start it off quoting Professor Henry Mitzberg yesterday. And he said it's actually the team should have actually been the lack of governance in a volatile world. And with that being said, and having this conversation on board and management, I want to say this, and I have said it many times before on sessions like these. The composition of our boards really matter. It's to have the right people on the board with the right skills, the right skill sets, and know what they're about. Oftentimes, we see boards that are constituted with peoples of affiliations and not necessarily those that have the requisite competence to enable competent governance. And it has been said on, excuse me, it has been said on many occasions, in stable time, governance ensure orders. In volatile times, governance determines survival. We all would agree that we are in a changing world. The world is changing, things are evolving every day. And organizations today operates in environment shaped by economic instability, political uncertainties, geopolitical conflicts, climate risks, technological disruption, cybersecurity threats, changing stakeholder expectations. Volatility is no longer occasional, it's permanent. Therefore, governance is no longer about compliance alone. It is about resilience and strategic leadership. What is volatility? It refers to the rapid changing uncertainty, unpredictability, complexity, and ambiguity. In today's contemporary environment, it's often described as UVAC. V is for volatile, U for uncertain, C for complex, and A for ambiguous. Excuse me, please bear with me. I'm a bit under the weather. So I do apologize if I pause ever so often to catch my breath. Organization must move from reactive governance to a more adaptive and proactive governance. Source of volatility in today's world, they are external forces, inflation and rising costs, geopolitical conflicts, regulatory shift, climate events, technological disruption. Internal forces can be weak governance culture, poor succession planning, slow decision making, and misaligned leadership. In today's world, why governance mattered more than ever? Strong governance provides stability and uncertainty, better decision making, faster crisis response, accountability, long-term resilience. Without governance, volatility creates poor decision making, strategic drift, reputational damage, and financial loss. The board core role, the board governs, not manage. While different, they are connected. Board responsibility includes setting strategic direction, risk oversight, CEO performance oversight, policy approval, culture and ethics oversight, protecting stakeholder interests. The board must ask, are we prepared for what could disrupt us tomorrow? Think of it as the board is the compass and management is the engine. Without the compass, there is no direction. And without the engine, there is no movement. Both are essential. Management core role. Management executes strategies. Its main responsibility is running day-to-day operation, implementing strategy, managing resources, managing people, reporting performance, and handling day-to-day risk. Management asks, how do we deliver results today while preparing for tomorrow? Governance failure happens when roles are blurred. Problem arises, board micromanages, management withhold information, trust breakdown, accountability is unclear. This certainly will result in delayed decisions, conflicts, poor execution, and loss of confidence. Board and management, or board plus management, equals strategic partnership. Success requires alignment. Governance and management, success framework. The relationship should be built on strategic alliance, trust and transparency, risk intelligence, agility and accountability. A known formula for success is good governance plus strong management plus a healthy culture equals to sustainable success. I will highlight 7 ways board and management should work together to ensure success. Align on strategy. Everyone must understand where we are going, why, and what success looks like. Strategic alliance questions board should ask, are we solving the right problems? Is strategy realistic? Are resource aligned? Management should provide clear strategy, data-driven decisions, and honest performance reporting. Oftentimes, as in our own personal life, communication is a breakdown. So communication is important, frequent communications between board and management. Board need time, honest information, management should report. Should report all risk, opportunity, challenges, emerging threats. Bad news travels fast. Surprises in the boardroom are usually signs of poor governance. A high-performance organization have open communication, timely escalations, no hidden surprises, ethical reporting. Excuse me. Trust reduces friction, transparency improves speed. Building a risk-aware culture. Modern boards oversee enterprise risks. Key risks such as financial risk, operational risk, cyber risk, climate risk, reputational risk, and AI risk. Questions. Are we only managing known risks, or are we preparing for unknown ones? Traditionally, governance asks, what went wrong? Modern governance asks, what could go wrong next? Use data for better decisions. Boards and management must rely on dashboards, KPIs, scenario plannings, and predictive analytics. In volatility, speeds matter. What informs speed matters more. Strengthening crisis readiness. A Caribbean perspective. For Caribbean organization, volatility is amplified by small economies, climate vulnerability, talent migration, fiscal constraints, and political transitions. Therefore, governance in the Caribbean must be adaptive, resilient, and future-focused. Every organization should prepare for shocks. And they should ask themselves, do we have a crisis plan? Who makes decisions? How do we communicate? How fast can we respond? Resilient organization rehearses disruption. Invest in leadership and succession. Board must ensure leadership continuity. Questions: who succeeds the CEO? Are leaders being developed? Do we have future-ready talent? Leadership gaps become dangerous during volatilities. Leading with ethics and integrity. During crisis, values are tested. Boards and executives must uphold integrity, fairness, accountability, and transparency. Trust is the most valuable governance asset. The future board, tomorrow's board, need some of the skill sets that they need are digital literacy, AI awareness, cyber competence, diversity of thoughts, and strategic agility. The future board is less passive, more informed, more adaptive, more courageous than it ever was. Our final thoughts are: in a volatile world, board cannot succeed without management. Management cannot succeed without the board. Success comes when board operate as a partnership as a partners in stewardship, Governance is not about controlling the future. It is about preparing the organization to thrive in it. In volatile times, success belongs not to the biggest organization, but to the best governed. When governance and management work in partnership, organizations become stronger, risk becomes manageable, and opportunity becomes attainable. Let us build institutions that are well governed, agile, ethical, and resilient, because the future will reward organizations where boards provide wisdom, management delivers excellence, and both remain united by purpose. Thank you. That wraps up my brief presentation.
Thank you very much, Robbie. You have provided so many different elements to what is needed in today's world dealing with the volatility. And I think a key point that came across is this issue of building trust between the management and the board. So I want to take some of what you have said bit by bit to unpack in this discussion with you, but also let me share with our participants that we are opening the floor one time to questions and comments from any of you. Robbie is quite an experienced individual and loves corporate governance almost as much as I do. So we are all here to share and really unpack how we can improve our governance practices. Robbie, I absolutely love how you constructed the information. I was expecting a PowerPoint, but this was fine.
Oh, you did?
In terms,
I had one.
yeah, so the opening presentations usually can be a PowerPoint because of how long it is. But we were happy to have you here with us. Now, one of the things that you mentioned among the many points, in terms of this relationship between the board and management, particularly as you say, in times of crisis and in volatility, trust becomes so important. You also serving as the chief executive officer for an organization and therefore being part of a management team and sitting as chairman of CCGI's board. So you have both perspectives, okay? Are we seeing in today's world, because of the many risks that are developing from so many quarters, as you described in your presentation this morning, are we seeing management needing to prepare more and more comprehensive board reports that are meant to be proactive as well in advising the board about potential challenges that we see? And I'm asking this because I have found in my conversations with Claire Gomez-Miller, and I see Claire is here because Claire is in the next panel. So I would not invite her to speak now because I don't want to cause her to have to share any of what she has planned for the next session. But one of the things that I've come to recognize is that because of the many risks that are faced, she talks all the time about the officers of the company needing to ensure that they fulfill their responsibility in preparing proper board reports, ensuring that your board is properly apprised, and that is what helps them to be proactive as well. So do you see that as in your role as CEO of the organization, being able to prepare more frequent reports, especially as you talk about being ready for challenges, the unknowns, things that you don't yet know about? Have you seen that shift in how your team is reporting to your board over the years in building the type of culture that you want for today's world?
Well, actually, when I became the CEO of this hospital, well, for those who don't know, I've been working here in excess of 20 years and actually started as a clerk in the warehouse. And when I became the CEO, the first task that I embarked on personally was to restructure the entire board report. The
Okay.
report that used to be presented by my predecessor was a lot of words. And I started to use more data, more numbers, because people at the board level don't find the time to go and read an entire thesis. They don't want that. So I created in ways that you give them data to show in a hospital context of patients, inpatient, outpatient, surgery, and also you got match that to the financials, because this is a government funded institution. This hospital, everything we do here at the hospital, it's free. And you want to ensure their stakeholders that they are getting value for money. Now, there is more and more need for data. And with the whole digitalizations that is happening across the world, you will find that it will be easily accessible. Data will be easily accessible. Data points will be created. And therefore, you could be making more timely, more have more discussions in the boardroom, and make decisions with number than being more anecdotals. So yes, I think there is a change. I have sat on several boards as well where other directors had shared the same sentiment about having data. And for me, I always list my challenges first, because the challenges are my risk of tomorrow. If I prepare a report that is all flurry, bright, and beautiful, and don't say what my challenges and risks are, and when it happens, then I will be the one held responsible. When I put that in the report, I basically transfer the risk to others as well. So we are all in this together. We all should sit down and find strategy to mitigate it. So no one will say, hey, we weren't aware of this. If there is anything that I during the day-to-day operation, I have a WhatsApp board group or a Teams group, I will drop information, keep them informed of what is happening. Because with the advent of technology, more and more data is available, more transparency and accountability will be required, and we must ensure that there is this open communication where everyone is being involved and inclusive. Therefore, the risk is not unseen or is borne on one person.
Right. Now, and I see Professor Garrett is also in the room with us, so I want to share on his very new book, Building Intelligent Boards. And although I have not yet finished reading the book, Professor Garrett does make the point in this book too about the importance of dashboards in preparations so that the board may be a lot more prepared. Now,
yes.
You spoke about that diversity.
If I should say this, sorry about this.
Yes.
In my boardroom, I'm equipping it with televisions. And we have recently implemented a Sage 300 accounting system, a human resource information system, lab information system, blood banking information system. We are currently doing a health management information system. And there will be built out data that will be pulled and reported on those television. So at any time, anyone could walk in, they can see how many patients are sitting at the emergency room, what are the waiting time, has any one of them fall through the crack, how many beds are available, how many patients are for surgery, how many surgery was complete, the various specialty, how many patients each specialty, and how many doctors are managing these patients. So that is the era that we are living in, and we have no choice than to equip ourselves to be relevant.
And I'm so happy to hear that, because of course the quality of health of your population has a very direct impact on your level productivity in the country, and therefore the level of effectiveness even for organizations. So that's great news. It's one of my areas that I'm quite passionate about too, health governance and ensuring we get improved healthcare delivery. So I look forward to seeing some of those reports as well, particularly to see that you don't have long waiting lines at emergencies and all that, which is kind of what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago at the moment.
This happens all
But
over the world.
yes, as we get back to the diversity that you spoke about, the importance of diversity in the boardroom, and you specifically mentioned things like digital literacy, cyber competence, AI awareness, diversity of thought on the whole, as well as strategic agility and so. Now, are you finding that directors themselves recognizing that need to improve their own competence so that they can serve better on boards? Or are they dependent on management to be able to guide them with all information?
I don't find directors are equipping themselves, to be honest. And I think a challenge that I have seen across, and I mentioned it earlier and on many occasions prior, because of the way, the framework of how we constitute our board, and because they are agency that ought to be represented, they send individuals there. And to get boards to be involved, because most of the board's member, they work, they have other responsibility. So to get them to sit in a training seminar, in any capacity building, it's quite difficult. So, I mean, there's a younger generation of people coming up, and they are more, these are things that they are paying attention to. But until such time, I think we are still, this is the experience from many of our Caribbean country that I have spoken to people about. Well, the boards are constituted basically with people with affiliations and not those with the necessary technical and competent skill sets that can contribute effectively in the boardroom. And I think that's one of the challenge. I've spoken before about the Curacao model, where they actually, we all know that very well, where if there's a vacancy on a board, there is an actual advertisement, and someone would apply and interviewed and ensure that they have the skill set, and that's how they are selected. In many of the other Caribbean countries, that's not how it's been done. It's someone is handpicking you to sit on the board without considering what is your skill set. And that is a huge risk.
Yes, it contributes to the challenge because even the way in which you are selected for the board determines whether you are going to improve yourself, because you think once you have that recognition by someone that you will serve as a director, that's all that's needed, as opposed if it is that there is an open competition, basically, where different people may be recommended, and you now have to bring to bear what level skill, experience, and training you have, that you could make a difference. I understand, and I agree with that. I was trying.
Some people just love the title too, eh?
Yes. Yes. I want to ask you, Robbie, if you can run back through your notes quickly. I was trying to capture the 7 points that you mentioned that was important for sustainable success for boards. The first point you had made was the alignment of strategy. But I wasn't quite clear if you have them written. You said there were 7 points.
Alignment of strategy,
Right.
communication, building a risk-aware culture, use data for better decision, strengthen crisis readiness, invest in leadership and succession, and lead with ethics and integrity.
Right. Okay. Okay, great. Yes, those are some excellent points, all of which I can see will in fact help build a healthy culture and contribute to sustainable success. So I'm just reminding everyone, I haven't seen any comment in the chat as yet, or any question, or anyone raising their hands, but you are welcome to join in the conversation if you wish. I want to come to another point while we wait to see if anyone else has a question, Robbie. And actually, before I go there, I see Christed has his hand up. So, Christed, please make your question very brief. You can unmute yourself and ask your question now.
Thank you very much, Kamala. And to the question raised, the gentleman indicated some of the challenges being involved, and I wonder what his view was, particularly as it relates to non-government organizations where board members are volunteers, and the issue of incentivizing those roles become the initiative for getting quality candidates. How do you address that?
Well, we could start, Robbie, with the fact that you are serving on an NGO board now, which is what CCGI is, purely voluntary for our directors.
I honestly really don't juxtapose financials, remunerations to performance. One has to be very ethical in what they are doing. And you can compensate people as much as they want. If they don't have ethics and integrity, it wouldn't matter. So it comes down to individual behavior, quality of the individual. Because if you are taking on a responsibility, voluntary or not, you ought to do it to the best of your ability. Do it with professionalism, with integrity, and with competence. So yeah, maybe people need to be paid for what they're doing. There are many people out there just don't want money. They want to serve. They want to build a legacy, a better world that they find it. They want to leave a footprint where the generation to come will be better. They don't want our children and our children's children to go through the same struggle that we went through. And we want to make a difference. Money doesn't matter to those people. And those are the people who are locked out. The ones who after the money and the ones who want the compensations are the ones that are being selected, and we don't get productivity from them. That has been my experience.
Thank you so much, Robbie. And we do have a question in the chat. This is from Derek Lotpat. Derek was saying a very good point, particularly on public sector boards. And furthermore, he said, for whatever reason, there is an absence of onboarding new board members to be adequately familiar with the organization for which they are responsible.
Well, that is true. And that is true. And it sometimes it's extremely difficult to get people to do onboarding. Like I said, everyone comes and some of them, I have sit on boards where people came, they only knew that they were going to be on the board after it was gazetted, after they were appointed. So clearly they were not briefed on it prior. And then they come and then they place their emphasis on their real job that they're doing, their priorities. So to get them again onboarding, they come, some may not listen. I have had difficulty, every time I go to a board meeting, the chairman would ask me to report. And I would say that I suspect I would expect that everyone read the board report and come here to ask me questions, not me to read back the board report to you. All right? So it's difficult, but it's very important. Onboarding is very important. And if we have a proper mechanism, framework on the constitution of boards, that's where it all started. Eh? And you will hear me saying it repeatedly like gospel. That's where it all starts. The composition of the board, how it is constituted, the skill set, etc. And if people are just being handpicked, I don't think they will give it their all.
Yes, and I see what you're saying in the extension, Robbie, that not only are directors not training themselves, but even from the onboarding process, at that very first signal, many of them have no desire because they think that sitting on the board immediately automatically imbues them with whatever skill that is required to be able to serve. And that's why a lot of organizations struggle, because their directors don't know enough about the organization, and they're not prepared to invest in learning what really their duties require them to do. And that's traditionally, it has worked when times were slower, but in today's volatile world, it leaves your management at risk. That's one. And two, when your management team prepares these board reports and it's submitted to the board and directors don't read it, then it encourages your management team to not be as vigilant in their reporting.
Exactly.
And the weakness then magnifies. And who suffers as a result of poor governance?
Yep.
The organization, the direct,
Yes,
the people.
definitely.
Yes. Yes. So now, as we look at the Caribbean region in particular, and I know that you did point to some issues, particularly for our small economies. But before I go there, I see Sherry Ann Joseph has a comment. Right. So she says, this is also very prevalent in credit union boards. Yes, I will tell you, Sherry, and that is so true.
Yep.
I am just back from the Caribbean Credit Union Conference in Barbados, and I was seeing it. She said the benefits sought far outweigh the desire to serve. There's also a disconnect with the management and board in most instances. Thank you for pointing that out, Shannon. And that is exactly the gap that CCGI is trying to fill. Because if the board does not take time in training, and so directors are not truly aware of their responsibility and their functions, and if management too is not aware, then clearly there's going to be dysfunction. So a lot of our work, we do encourage the officers of the company, the executive managers, everyone to understand what governance is, because they play a fundamental role. And this was also a point that Robbie made in his presentation, the importance of management working together with the board. So if directors are not as aware of their functions, management at least need to know, so that management can provide them with the right information, the right guidance, so that would help them to be able to fulfill their roles. And so I want to say it really comes down to governance is everyone's responsibility. We all need to know and understand it so that we can recognize too when there is poor or weak governance in our organizations. Okay, so I'm really happy that we have a lot of directors in our midst here as well. So this is to let you guys know this is not a director bashing exercise. We do have a lot of directors who are really keen on performing really well in their functions and fulfilling their roles. And we are happy for these people because this helps with the stability of our organizations, and the growth in our economies and success of our country. So many thanks to all of you. But there definitely is room for improvement. And that improvement really begins with, as Robbie says, the selection process. There's this saying, Robbie, that there's a small pool of candidates available to serve on boards. What is your opinion on that for the Caribbean region, where basically it's small economies with few people who have experience at that top level? What would be your response to the fact that there's just a small pool?
I wouldn't agree with that they're a small pool. I wouldn't. But what is difficult is the independence. In small states like ours, almost everyone know each other. Guyana is less than 1 million, but yeah, about 1 million people now. Trinidad, same thing. Some of the small islands, a couple thousand people. So it's in some cases where there is small pool, but at the the underlying issue is the independence of each one of them, because everyone know each other, and then the way that you are appointed on the board as well compromises the way that you carry out your functions.
Yes, this was a point made in yesterday's opening ceremony as well by David Gomez from Belize. He was saying it's both a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing when it's a small pool of people who know each other, because you can get action sometimes very quickly. But then it's a curse when, as you say, it compromises your ability to be independent and to really guide your board in ways that the board needs to ensure it is guided in volatile times like this. So there is also another comment from Derek. Derek, would you like to unmute and share your thoughts? It's quite a long comment.
Yes, sorry, I tried to keep it as short as possible.
No, that's okay. Yes,
I
go
wanted
ahead.
to thank Mr. Rambarran, though. I mean, it was an excellent opening. I had absolutely no quarrel with any point he made. I mean, while we have, the aforementioned challenges with boards today, one of the things I wanted to throw out is, particularly for those more well-established, more visionary organizations, that board mandates should start to go beyond its own businesses. And it would be good to see that collaborative effort across organizations through its boards, who, for all intents and purposes, think long-term, think broadly, so that we could try to harness the collective resources given the limitations, particularly in our region, to try and address those more, those problems that are common to all of us. I always say, anytime we sit in a room and you start to get to know people, you realize that we have more in common than we do different. And I'm talking about even outside your region. Yet, for whatever, again, for whatever reason, that collaboration seems to be the exception rather than the norm. So just wanted to use the opportunity to throw it out in this forum, that type of leadership is required to address those problems, economic, social, and environmental, which are all intertwined and interrelated. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, and thank you very much, Derek. I think that is truly a beautiful point, the importance of partnerships and collaborations. It's how CCGI has been able to rebuild itself over the last 6-7 years, because there are so many other organizations that serve, that associates themselves with CCGI, that because our resources are very small, but we have been able to have significant reach and impact. And that is because we do collaborate with a lot of other organizations, with a lot of people, in being able to expand our reach. So I agree with you entirely, Derek. If that is magnified by several other organizations, and also just to remind us all that collaboration and partnership really is one of the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. It is one of the things that is recognized as what would help take us into a better future. So I want to underscore that. Thank you. Thank you, Derek. And I'm happy we now have over 50 people in the room. Robbie, a lot of people came out to hear you this morning, and I'm sure no one is disappointed, because it really was truly such a packed contribution that had some truly excellent points. So if no one else has a question, I will ask another one again, because we have just about 8 more minutes. And Robbie, I'm going to go to this particular point that you made about modern governance, and the importance of being a very risk-aware board, looking at all these issues of whether it's cyber risk, climate risk, reputational risk, AI risks, all of these and risks that are still unknown that may materialize at any time. So you're saying that modern governance asks what could go wrong next?
Yep.
You know, as opposed to in traditional governance where things would happen and then you look back and say, okay, so what went wrong? In today's world, really and truly, what Professor Garrett reminded us yesterday again as the polycrisis, which currently engulfs this world, means that you are being bombarded from many different directions at the same time. So today we have the geopolitics with the war on Iran, where you have supply chain disruptions that is having very direct effect on organizations across the world. I read, for instance, that there were countries that had to close schools for 2 weeks, organizations that had to have 4-day work weeks in order to reduce people having to drive on the streets to try and conserve energy. So things that have very direct impact on your organization's ability to be able to function. And therefore, when we talk about the importance of training for directors, this issue of what can go wrong next truly requires a level of awareness that you have to see beyond corners. So how do we develop that skill set? What is the one thing as a director, when you think about it, sitting in your boardroom, what is the one thing that can help you to ensure that you are as best prepared for risks and shocks that you're not even aware of as yet?
Well, I think first of all, if you're
Yes.
talking to a set of people who don't know what you're about without a requisite skill set, then somebody will dominate the conversation and everybody else will sit down and listen. So if you have a right composition with people with skill sets, you'll have a conversation, an open conversation. And you know, like many organizations, and I have found myself in this, that everyone speaks about the digital transformation, the digital era, but not understanding the amount of work that requires.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just people believes. I have had conversation. People just believe go in and buy a off the market software, off the shelf software and implement it. And that is it. No, you have to ensure that you built out an IT infrastructure. One that is foolproof with switches and firewalls and everything else that withstand any cyber attack. Because there are people who live in your system just managing and waiting on the right time to strike. Right? It's like I'm rolling out all of this initiative. Yes, it's good. But then we have to ensure that every one of our employees who will utilize the various system has a corporate email. That costs a lot of money. It's going to cost us here about $70 million a year, between $70 to $80 million a year. It's about 400,000 US dollars a year just for us to maintain corporate emails. So a lot of people will talk about implementing these systems and don't look about all the other absorption costs that it entails. And if you don't, then it becomes a huge risk. If you allow people to sign into your system using their personal email, using their personal computers, and so it becomes real risk. And that's basically for almost every risk. So you have to really think it through. You have to have competence people who can sit down and have reasonable conversations about the topic and ensure that you mapped out a process that is going to be effective for its implementation.
Yes. So I would conclude that underscoring all of it is that open communication and trust. Trust.
Open communication, trust, having the right people on the board.
Okay, yes, sounds really good. So we are just about 2 minutes away from concluding this opening presentation for today. I want to thank everyone who really took time to join us this morning. Just to remind everyone that we have 3 panels that will be following this opening presentation this morning. The first panel will take place in a half hour after we close this session, and that panel will be when leadership is tested, the critical role of board oversight. And our panelists for that session are Claire Gomez-Miller, who is the Managing Director of British American Insurance Company here in Trinidad and Tobago. Yolanda Hughes-Smith, she's a director at the Guyana National Shipping Company. And Oliver Jordan, who is a corporate director and governance advisor out of Barbados. The moderator for that session is Kimberly Uriah Ali, our Group General Counsel and Corporate Secretary at Republic Bank in Trinidad and Tobago. And so I want to just look very quickly. Right, we do have some comments in the chat. And I love this, Claire, to remember that trust is not a control. So you can trust but verify. I know you've drilled that into my head. Right? So trust is not a control, but partnerships helps. That's really a good contribution. And thank you, Claire. I agree. It was an excellent presentation from Robbie this morning. So Robbie, I want to just give you the last few seconds to give any closing thoughts as we bring this opening segment of Governance Week 2026 Day 1 to a close.
Yeah, I will just, I mean, there, like you said, there are 53 persons here, and I was looking at the number building up while I was presenting. And these are people who I would think really means business, who take governance very serious. And I just want to implore to each and every one of us that we really have a huge responsibility to play. We live in some vulnerable times. And especially the geopolitics, which influence almost everything. We can see it happening throughout the Caribbean region, from countries from some of the policy in the U.S. that is affecting and influencing the Caribbean country. So each and every one of us have a real responsibility to ensure that we contribute so that we leave this world, I said it earlier, we leave a footprint. We leave this world in a better place. We leave it where our children and our children's children don't have to go through the same struggle that we went through. We need to make a difference. For too long, people have been saying this, and there has been a little action. And I mean, we will say it, we will continue, but there are a lot of hands, many hands make light work. They need a lot of voice to champion this. I mean, we have some very powerful voice that we will have to overcome and advocate towards, but it's worth it at the end of the day. Thank you, Cams.
Thank you so much, Robbie. So I want to ask, we do have a survey that we want to be able to get your feedback. So I know Monique may be having some difficulties. So Laura or Quantrell, if you can give us the link for day 1. Just the initial survey that had been developed, so we can put it in the chat and get feedback from everyone for this morning's presentation. That would be truly good. And as we look for that, I'm going to ask Quantrell, I know I'm going to ask you to multitask here, but I do want you to bring this opening segment to an end with the sponsors video with music by Joshua Regrello. So thank you very much, Robbie. Excellent session this morning. Thank you to all the participants who have been here with us. Do stay on because the room remains open as we prepare for our first panel, which will begin in just about a half hour's time. So Quantrell, is the video ready? Okay. Thank you very much, Quantrell. And Laura, thank you so much. Just want to share with everyone, the survey link is now in the chat.